Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, 31 Days of Horror Volume 7, Day 7 coming at you live and direct. And yes, we're going to take it back to 2018 with a relatively new film from my boy, Nick Box. He's a director out of the UK. His label is Dead Good Films like. He's been doing films for a long time, I think he started about 2004. I've actually talked about many of his films on this channel and other channels throughout the years. One of my favorites being She's Dead. I think it's a fantastic film. Mr. Rape's First Date is another really good film. He did Coffiniac. He did Dracula vs. Ninja on the Moon, Violent Vicar, Suicidal Preachers, and so on and so on. He did a lot of really good films that I've talked about in the past. So I was very curious on this one. He sent me this film a couple years back, and I'm just finally getting to it. And I didn't really know anything about it until I read the synopsis when I was kind of gathering films to do this 31 Days of Horror, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. One thing I've always respected about Nick Box is that he doesn't kind of like regurgitate similar themes and ideas in his films. He kind of puts his own spin on things, and he really does do a very kind of unique job with the type of films that he makes and stuff like that. They're very low budget and things like that, but I always think that he brings something new to the table, which I respect in an indie filmmaker like Nick Box. So when I saw what this one is about, I was like, that's really interesting. I can't wait to dig into this one. So from 2018, it's called Elevator to Insanity. Now, I want to just read what's on the back here, not the synopsis, but it says, from Nick Box, director of She's Dead. Like I said, I highly recommend She's Dead. It's probably my favorite Nick Box film. Comes his take on the boring art horror genre. So I thought that was really interesting. So he's basically he's poking fun at like art horror and elevated horror, hence Elevator to Insanity. And I love the fact that he didn't put the word elevated on the back because it was written right here on the front. All right, so getting into the quick little synopsis on this one. Basically, it's about he's a Greek photographer. He gets onto an elevator. He starts going up and up and up and up, and then eventually somebody gets on the elevator. It's a female, and she gets right off, and then he kind of starts going back up, and it starts to repeat itself. It's kind of like this wash, rinse, repeat type deal thing until, something happens, and then something happens and towards the end and stuff like that. And it's basically your plot and synopsis of the film. Now, my thoughts on this one, I really like Nick's ideas for films. You can see his frustration in the art house, the art house horror film genre, hence elevated horror films. Now, I get it, man. The whole elevated horror film thing has been it's frustrating to me. I hate the term elevated horror films. I mean, it's a term that got coined in the last few years because of all these really, really well-made horror films. And the thing is, though, and the fact that a lot of these films have social commentary. Now, the thing is with horror films is that horror films have had social commentary in them since the dawn of time. It's one of those genres that has been always packed full of, social commentary and stuff like that. That's what separates it from the other genres. Besides all the blood and gore and all the other shit that's going on, there's usually commentary in these films. It's frustrating to see that people are hating on these films nowadays because, they've got social commentary, which they always have. I always use The Shining as a direct comparison to like the horror films of today. And it's like if The Shining from 1980 by Stanley Kubrick was made today, people consider that as like an elevated horror film. People don't really consider it to be because it was made back in the day. Back in the day, horror film budgets were a lot less. It's got the love in the last few years. That's why it's got this, this label put on it as elevated horror, because all the social commentary, but they're also really, really well made films, good acting, good cinematography. They're just made differently now. And it's got this stigma, it's got this label put on them, and it's like a bad thing to people, even though the commentary has been there forever. It's just the films are a little bit more well made than they once were. And I'm not saying all films back in the day were made well. There's a lot of really well made films with higher budgets and stuff like that, but they just seem to be getting more love these days. And this is his frustration in it, and I get it too, though, that there is a lot of like art house films that are, kind of what he's doing here. There's a lot of things that's not happening in the films. They're very, very slow moving, and then when something happens at the end, that's your whole movie. Well, he really does explore this, and I love the fact that he put this on an elevator for elevated horror. So what we get here is a character that's on an elevator, and essentially he's going up and up, and it's wash, rinse, repeat. It's it just kind of keeps repeating itself, and it does this for about half the film. It really does. It's a guy standing in an elevator, playing with his camera, female gets on, and she gets off, and then, you know, through basically no dialogue. And I like the way he kind of mixed it too, because we don't really get any English dialogue here. Like I said, he's a Greek photographer. So once she gets on the elevator a couple times, he starts to speak to her in his language, and he's freaking out. And she's not really paying any attention to him and stuff like that. And he does this for like half the movie. And then, of course, you know, little things happen, and the ending kind of goes batshit. Exactly what you would expect in an art house film, where a lot of times you watch these art house films and you're like, you know, they're very slow moving, and, you know, whatever the director's trying to say in them is not really explored in the end. It's kind of a mind trip. It's kind of a mind fuck sometimes, and you're just like, what the hell did I just watch? That was ridiculous. But people like it because it was well shot, it was well acted and stuff like that. That's kind of what we get here, because it's shot in black and white. So right there, it's actually on an elevator, and it's very slow moving until the odd thing happens, and then you get this mind fuck of an ending, which is what he's exploring in the art horror genre. So I think it's actually pretty cool. It's not going to be for everybody. It runs 70 minutes. The credits kick in about 62 minutes, and half the movie is just like, it's really repetitive. Now, the movie starts out with a direct, the meaning of deja vu, which is explored in here and stuff like that. But he made it art house. He shot this in black and white. It's got pretty interesting music and stuff like that. There's not very many characters. Like I said, there's really no dialogue in the movie. And when there is, it's in Greek. There's no subtitles. You can't really understand what's going on, but that's not the point. You're not really supposed to understand what he's saying to her anyways. But there is some misses in this film, because there's a point about just over half in the film, another character steps onto the elevator, and there's like a 3 or 4 second clip of this person screaming at our main character, and it loops itself for like 3-4 minutes, and I'm like, oh my god, my ears. It was driving me freaking bananas. I was like, Nick, we get the point. We understand what you're doing. You know, you could probably not loop that for 3 or 4 minutes, you know, but so that was kind of a miss and stuff. I did think the ending was kind of a trippy thing, but I think it's done on purpose. Again, he's exploring the whole art house thing, where a lot of these endings in these newer films don't really make any fucking sense. And but I like the commentary. I like what he's doing here. But I really like the overall product, in a sense that you can see Nick's frustration in that type of genre of films, where they're just getting so much damn love for probably some of the wrong reasons. Just because they're acted well and they're shot well doesn't really necessarily make them good films. And I kind of like what he's doing here a lot, actually. And again, setting this on an elevator is quite brilliant, because when you're exploring and poking fun of elevated horror films, why not set it on an elevator? There's lots of great movies set on elevators. I just watched one called Out of Order. It's a German thriller film. And it's really good, man. There's a lot of good stuff like Devil, and there's The Lift and all that type of stuff. And yeah, lots of good ones. But again, Nick Box is one of those directors that I've always enjoyed what he does with movies. Again, he doesn't regurgitate things, and, you know, he kind of puts his own spin onto things. And I like this. You know, it's daring. It's kind of a daring film to poke fun of what's going on in the horror genre right now and stuff like that, and do it very low budget, but do it on your own sense and your own means and things like that. So, again, you know, commentary is thick here. And it's not really going to be for everybody. I mean, a lot of people probably watching this film are going to get super frustrated with the repetitiveness, and just probably lack of really kind of getting the commentary, and even really not having a payoff. But again, that's what he's poking fun of. That's the brilliance of the movie. Is it entertaining? Oddly, yes. I still can't believe this is another black and white film, another film really with no dialogue, and that I've watched from the 31 Days of Horror. It's just really bizarre to me that this has happened to me again. Again, I've been picking these films just based on things I haven't seen before, trying to get them out of my collection. Not out of my collection, just watch, you know, bring down that watch pile a little bit and stuff like that. So, yeah, Nick, you know, he's always been good to me. He's been a good buddy of mine. He sent me this film a couple years ago, and I said, you know, I'll get to these things eventually and stuff like that. So I always bring my honest opinions. I think Nick did a lot of good things here. I think there's some things that didn't work as well, but I understood what he is doing, because, you know, when you're watching these movies with a critical eye, you really got to put the time in to understand and try and understand what these filmmakers are trying to do with this and stuff. And a lot of people might look at this and go, oh, it's just boring drivel. I get that. I completely understand that. But again, I know Nick as a filmmaker, and I understand what he's always trying to do in his films. He's not just trying to make a slasher film. He's not just trying to make a pointless paranormal film. He's always trying to do something different. And that's kind of what separates him from a lot of other filmmakers. And, you know, he's in that realm of these indie filmmakers that really like to do different things. And this is definitely one of them. I'm going to come in at about a 6.5, 6 out of 10 on this one. Like I said, I enjoy this. I might be in the major minority of people that will really enjoy this type of film, because it did get frustrating for me a little bit. It got frustrating at times because I didn't need that 3-4 second loop of this person screaming at our main character and stuff. Did I fully understand the ending? Yeah, kind of. I think so. I think if Nick contacts me, I'm going to ask him about it. But I think I did get it. But Elevator to Insanity, it says a lot in the title. It really does. There's so much more going on in this title than meets the eye, for sure. So, Elevator to Insanity, 6 out of 10, 31 Days of Horror. Day 7, I'll be back tomorrow with Day 8. And I do have the film picked out, so stay tuned for that. I think it's going to be a good one. And I'll talk to you guys then. That's going to conclude the review. And as usual,